This is the Marvel Masterworks vidcast, True Believers, where we cover all of the adventures in the Marvel Universe. From the wanderings of the Green Goliath, to the chaotic offices of the Daily Bugle, to the grim alleyways of Hell's Kitchen, and to the top of Avengers Tower, with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of the Marvel Masterworks vidcast and podcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam. And with me is my co-host, the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Marvel fans? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy, and it's time for us to grab our 5XL evening gowns and talk about the She-Hulk.
I don't actually own that size evening gown. I don't even actually own an evening gown, so
Right.
I'm just going to wear my X-Men t-shirt and joggers and do exactly what Donnie said we're going to do.
I got my Venom stuff on today, so paired with my Green Lantern necklace, but yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have... A whopping 47 seconds into the show. All right. Yeah, so we're going to review the first two episodes of She-Hulk.
That was just a guess, by the way. I think I read where her official weight in the MCU is 650. Well, when you're like 650 and like 8 feet tall, I'm like, what size wedding gown would that be? I don't know.
We're not supposed to ask women what their weight is, Donnie. But
yeah, the rules might be different for her, though.
Listen, though, I'll just tell you this. Let's get it right off the bat.
Yeah.
Tatiana Maslany, good Canadian girl, on the list.
Yes. And I'm aware that you're never supposed to ask a woman her weight or her age.
Oh, good.
So, yeah. Yes.
I'm glad you're aware of that.
Yes. That's bad form, Peter. Bad form.
Indeed.
That's
Before
my awful Captain Hook impression.
Wow. By the way, that Hook movie was great. I loved it.
Yes.
Such a good movie. Best version of that story, in my opinion. But this is not the Hook podcast. And we will talk about She-Hulk. But before we do that, there's some Marvel-related movie news, Donnie.
Okay.
As we know, the Fantastic Four is on its way, and that it had a director, which at the time was going to be it was going to be John Watts.
Okay.
Who did the Spider-Man Far or No Way or Homecoming to Far From Home to No Way Home trilogy. He bowed out of the project to go do a Star Wars Disney Plus series instead.
Okay.
And so they've found a new director for Fantastic Four, and that is going to be Matt Shakman.
Okay.
Or Shakman, not Shankman. Shakman. I don't know, these names are, yeah. And basically, he, for those who don't know, he was the showrunner and producer of WandaVision. So he has...
Well, that's some good credentials right there.
He has, yeah, so he has... some Marvel experience.
Okay.
And that I think, what I think that shows is he can handle the big budget stuff, because there were some pretty cool fights in WandaVision.
Yes.
Pretty cool set pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But he can also balance, the humor and seriousness, which I think you need a bit of both for the Fantastic Four.
And he understands then how to work within the certain framework of the MCU.
Right. And so I like the hire. It's funny that it seems to me that Marvel is with the recent hires is keeping things in the family, so to speak. We recently saw that Dustin Cretton, who was the director of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, is also producing the Wonder Man series for Disney Plus, and is also going to direct the Avengers Kang Dynasty movie. So they're keeping people that are already in the fold to do more projects. So that's cool to me.
So it's like all in the family.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You think Archie Bunker's a part of the MCU somewhere?
I mean, why not? I don't know what role he'd play, but he could have been a good Radu or Archie Bunker. I think he would have.
Right. Well, that would be DC, but yes, yeah.
See, now I'm making Green Lantern, so I think about it.
And if anybody who's like 20 years old listen to this, are going Archie Bunker.
Yeah, do a Google search, folks.
Yeah.
You have
all
Google
in the family. Yeah. That's some good character development.
You know what's great is that show would have never. It's great and it's sad, really, but that show would never be made today, just because.
Right. Well, there was a lot of growth with Archie, but you had to get there, so you had to, understand that.
And there was social, it was really his behavior, and some of the things he would say, some may see as reprehensible, but it was being used to be a commentary on why you shouldn't do these things.
Right, exactly. That was the point.
And the nuance now seems to be lost on people because their instantaneous reaction is, that's offensive. We're going to complain about everything. So
the same people who said that DC was endorsing racism because Eclipso was a racist. I'm like, he's the bad guy.
Yeah,
and that's how you know he's the bad guy.
Internet fandom.
Oh.
Why do you exist?
Yeah.
But yeah, so Matt, I like this the fact that they are staying in house, and again, the guy proved himself that he's capable of working within the Marvel structure, and Fantastic Four, Donnie. As much as I enjoy. I enjoy the Tim Story movies. I do.
What would be cool is that at some point in like some future MCU installment, they have Chris Evans come back as Johnny Storm, like a retired Johnny Storm, just for like one scene. Yeah,
that would be funny. I would happily welcome that. But I enjoyed those movies. But at the same time, I'm really eager to see the Fantastic Four in the MCU, because I still think while I enjoyed those Tim Story movies, there was just something slightly off.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the F4 has really had that home run that such a story.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, I love the Fantastic Four. I thought you were referencing the Fan Four Stick, whatever, the reboot that they had. That was
that was total horse.
Ooh.
That was a disaster. That was a disaster.
Poor Michael B. Jordan.
Good Lord, I think that was worse than Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Now that's a cameo I don't need to see. He can come back as Killmonger, but he doesn't need to reprise that.
No. Come back as Killmonger, maybe be Val-Zod, hopefully.
Unless Killmonger kills that version of his character, I'd be fine with that.
But yeah, no, that movie was terrible. But again, I don't think I don't think that franchise those groups of characters have really had the top tier treatment that they deserve. And I think under the watch of Kevin Feige and now Matt Shakman, I think they could finally get, what is it? The third time's the charm. Is that the saying?
Yeah.
Well, for the fan four, the third time may very well be the charm. Well, technically it's the fourth time because Roger Corman.
Right.
Movie.
Well, it would be the second reboot, so technically, yeah, third time's a charm.
Right, but the Roger Corman one, if we're counting that, then that's...
Oh, yeah, okay, we're going deep. That's a deep cut now.
Yeah, release the Corman cut, hashtag.
Yes. See, now there is something I would want to see like in its entirety on a DVD. So
it's on YouTube, so hashtag...
Oh, the whole thing is?
Apparently, yeah.
Okay. I saw scenes of it a long time ago. I've never seen the whole thing.
Hashtag release the Corman cut of Fantastic Four. Yeah. Wouldn't it be funny if that got released before the restoration of a certain certain franchise? I'd laugh. I'd really find that humorous.
You know what we ought to do a commentary on? Well, not a commentary, just a podcast episode. Have you ever seen the Turkish movie? I think it's pronounced Dirch Divadam, but it's 3 Dev Adam. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
It's an unlicensed... It's actually the first cinematic appearance of Spider-Man. It was an unlicensed Turkish movie where he was a villain. And it is like... I've never used drugs, but I can only imagine that this is what drugs would be like.
Probably.
Yeah. It's on YouTube. I'll send you the link and you can watch it sometime.
Yeah, I saw something similar with Superman.
Right. Well, I think that's a Bollywood thing.
I just looked and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't exactly know what this is, and I think I'm just going to stop whatever I'm watching right here.
The plot to 3 Dev Adam is that Spider-Man is a leader of it's called the Spider Gang. Oh. And they send Captain America and El Santo, yes, the luchador, to stop him. And Spider-Man is a non-powered being, but he's a leader of this gang, and he does things like kill people with guinea pigs.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
That's my nerd cred, is I go that deep into the nerd world.
That is disturbing.
Yeah. Oh, you have no idea. This thing is like, seriously, it's like a cheap horror movie almost. And that's his first cinematic appearance.
I'm disturbed just hearing about this.
Yeah. 1973, Spider-Man was only 11 years old. So, I mean, he'd only been around for 11 years. The character wasn't 11 years old. But yeah, he was, 1962.
And then the people wonder why Superman, the movie, was such a revelation. Because look at the junk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Stan Lee even said, people ask him, with the success of Superman and Batman, why did it take to 2002 to do Spider-Man? And he was like, the technology didn't exist to do this character justice. I wanted to wait to make sure the character could be, properly adapted on screen. Sometimes you got to wait for quality.
That is true. That is true. So, yeah, that's some weird stuff, but...
that's some good dating advice, too.
Yeah, well, This is very true. Yeah, so it's, depending on your perspective, this is either the third or fourth attempt at Fantastic Four. And like I said, one of the properties that Marvel's gotten back that I've been eagerly anticipating them getting back to get a crack at is Fantastic Four. Because I think Feige knows how prestigious that set of characters are, and he will, I'm sure, in making this decision, he's taken great care to get it right, and so I'm looking forward to it, and that will release, provided the world cooperates, on November 8th, 2024. Well, you have to say it now,
yeah,
because who the hell knows anymore? But Donnie, any thoughts? Any final thoughts on the?
No, I'm glad to see that we're going to get the Fantastic Four in the MCU, because for younger viewers, younger fans of Marvel, there was a time really when the Fantastic Four was kind of neck and neck with Spider-Man in terms of popularity. I mean, they were selling a lot of comics at one time. And obviously, Spider-Man was eventually catapulted, as was the Hulk with his TV series. But historically, they've been a huge part of Marvel, and they've just been kind of left in the past a little bit because the MCU has had to move forward without them, much like the X-Men. And we know how important the X-Men are to Marvel. So
they're coming.
This is another step in getting like an adaptation of Marvel the way it should be, with all the pieces from the comics.
Right, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. So exciting hire. And there's rumors, Donnie, I don't know how factual they are, but that we could potentially see a cast reveal at D23 in September.
Okay.
So we shall wait and see. And if we do get that cast reveal, or whatever reveals we do get at D23, Donnie and I will be on a podcast discussing it.
Yes, we will see.
Exactly.
It's for Cookie, anyway.
Yeah.
That's a different podcast.
Now we've turned into Sesame Street.
I wonder if Cookie Monster is a part of the MCU, if he exists somewhere.
Which is no longer on HBO Max, by the way.
I've heard it, like they took down 200 episodes or something.
Certain episodes, and apparently people were really upset by that, because so many people apparently use HBO Max. I didn't know this, but according to the internet, if you take Twitter freakouts as the gospel of popularity, Sesame people really use HBO Max to watch those 200 episodes, those specific 200 episodes of Sesame Street, because it was a big deal for a whole 3-4 hours.
Okay.
I've never
Sesame Street was a huge part of my childhood, as it was for my children. But I'm like, can't you get Sesame Street other places?
Probably
easily.
Yeah, okay. I would think so.
That's what I think.
Really, there are bigger issues in the world than.
Right. Can you imagine the gospel according to Twitter? I don't even want to know what that would be like.
Well, I could tell you there'd be a restore this hashtag, restore that. I mean, whole chapters, huh?
Right. And a whole bunch of nasty fan art, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. But we won't get into that, because the most disturbing thing we talked about is apparently this forgotten
movie,
Spider-Man. Thank God it was forgotten. Anyway. So Fantastic Four, moving in the right direction. We'll continue to cover it, and as things continue to happen. But that is the latest in Marvel Studios news. Donnie and I are going to take a quick break. And then on the other side of that break, we are going to come back and discuss She-Hulk, episodes 1 and 2.
And 2. You'll be green with envy with all of our knowledge.
Get your popcorn, and we'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere.
I'm your host, Adam.
And I'm the Emerald Enthusiast.
And for all your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows.
That includes Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Masters of the Universe, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Comics universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast.
All right here on YouTube and Podbean. From the first podcast and vidcast to the last.
And we're back!
Indeed we are. You don't know how much of a choreographed thing that is, folks, when we do it. Behind the scenes, we'll just make it seem seamless and effortless. But we are back. And as we alluded to at the opening of the show, a new Disney Plus series has premiered, set in the MCU, and that is She-Hulk.
Yes.
Starring Tatiana Maslany and featuring Mark Ruffalo and Tim Roth. Mm-hmm. So, Donnie, give us let's get right into it. Episode 1.
Episode 1, a normal amount of rage. So prior to a court case, we see lawyer Jennifer Walters. She tells the viewers about an incident a few months earlier where she and her cousin Bruce Banner were in a car crash. By the way, it takes her exactly 2 minutes and 41 seconds in this to break the fourth wall. So, for those of you who don't know, she was infamous, not necessarily infamous, but that was a regular part of her in the comics. Part of this character is that she would break the fourth wall. Very comedically. Before Deadpool did it, by the way.
So that's another thing that Rob Liefeld stole. Okay, good. He bugs me. I'm sorry. I respect the creators, but he bugs me.
So, she didn't have too many pouches, though. We'll say that, though.
Yeah, well, you know what he can't draw with feet, he makes up with pouches.
Yeah. So basically, we get kind of it's in the spirit of her comic origin, but it's more condensed. So what happens here is that we see that a Sicarian ship shows up, causing a wreck. Instead of, the whole deal like in the comics where she's injured by, I believe it was a mob boss, and he has to give her a transfusion. In this, we see that their blood is mixed because she's injured and he's injured in the rollover.
Yeah.
By the way, I believe there's a lot more to that than we actually saw. I think they're going to expand that as the episodes go on.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, what happens here is that after being contaminated by Bruce's blood, Bruce takes her to a secret laboratory in Mexico where he trains her to control her new powers. And I really like the line, okay, go ahead and teach me to Hulk.
Yeah. Again, just you talking about the origin differences. I think that you're right. To me, it seems like that's just a more concise, easier to digest explanation for it.
Yeah.
Which is fine. The Sicarian ship is cool because it sort of informs what could be next for the Hulk himself.
Yeah. I'll have more to say about that in a few minutes, but yeah.
So I like that, that tease at the beginning, and then the whole training montage or segment, more of a segment than really a montage, was fantastic. Like him trying to poke the bear, as it were, to see how angry he could get her was hilarious. And you know what? In the same vein, even though they're both adults, that's the kind of, if you're going to piss off your relative, your cousin or whatever, that's the kind of crap you would pull. Like you'd wake them up from a sleep, you'd do this kind and that. So yeah, I thought it felt really, authentic in terms of a familial relationship.
Exactly.
Which
I really like the line when she talked about, they talked about doing yoga. And she said, yeah, I always use that to make like my buns tight or something like that. And he's like, gross, Jen, you're my cousin.
Yeah. Definitely. That was great stuff. But and then as they're like, they're basically trying to one up each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she seems to be doing everything better than he can. Like, they do the boulder throwing thing, the landing, which was all fun. And then, so she's doing it all better than him. And she's like, I'm already mastering all this. And so in a kind of a jealousy kind of thing, he pushes her off the cliff.
Right.
And he's like, take that. Show off.
So, and in the middle of all this, we see that Bruce is actually teaching her DBT, aka dialectical behavioral therapy. And so for those of you who don't know, that's a form of psychotherapy to teach people like emotional regulation, like teach them to understand their triggers and like choose their behaviors more wisely. And this is a subject of controversy because she talked about having some experience in this area because as a woman in a very competitive profession, she faces a lot of microaggressions. And she was like, I face this every day. She was not saying my trauma is worse than yours, Bruce. What she was saying was, I face this every day. It's not something that happened in my childhood a long time ago. Some people took that as, oh, she's saying that his trauma didn't matter because he's a man. That is completely the opposite of what she was saying.
So wait a minute, Donnie. You're telling me the internet is taking one thing and turning it into something it's not and overreacting?
Oh, I never would imagine that there's a bunch of insecure men out there who are threatened by the She-Hulk saying, oh, I have some control because I'm a woman and I have to.
I'm so shocked. I'm really.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so shocking. It's so shocking. I'm borderline traumatized. And you know what was even more shocking? I almost fell out of my chair for this one, Donnie.
Okay.
Yellowfish, remember them?
Oh, yes.
They complained about He-Man?
Yes.
Well, guess what? They made a video complaining about this too.
Of course. Yeah.
They didn't call themselves Yellowfish. I call themselves Clown Ass. That's what I call them. Anyway, carry on then.
But although there was one thing that I thought was a little strange. So Bruce obviously understands some psychology here, but he seems to be a little confused by the fact that she has more control over herself. When she turns into the Hulk, she's basically a hulked out version of Jennifer Walters.
Yeah.
She didn't have the inner struggle. Okay, so in the comics, the Hulk, at least traditionally, I don't exactly know where this is as far as being up to date, but the Hulk is a manifestation of Bruce Banner's dissociative identity disorder.
Right.
He already has multiple personalities within himself, and the Hulk is just manifestations of those. So you would think he would understand that. That's why Jen doesn't have it, because she is a mentally healthy person.
Right.
Unlike, Bruce having this as the result of his childhood trauma.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Now, if that's in play in the MCU, I'm not exactly sure because we've never really heard about Bruce's dad or mother. Remember that we saw that in the 2003 movie, but that's not a part of the MCU.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So we don't know his backstory, his real backstory in the MCU.
Yeah.
In terms of that, but it, and you know what I saw too that really kind of alerted me that some people gotta get outside and live a little. Is that I saw some well-known YouTubers who like to have, I call them staged overreactions, like to trailers and such. They yell extremely loud, this fake excitement when they do trailer reactions and stuff like that. Talk about that moment you said about Jen talking about she experiences this every day when she gets catcalled, and he's like, until the the MCU told me, I never knew women went through this, and it's like, what rock are you living under? Like did the MCU teach you how to eat too?
Right, exactly.
This happens to women all the time. I mean, any moron with a pair of eyes, I'm sure walking down the street has seen this or heard somebody make a reference. I've heard men make a reference. I wasn't one of them because I like to think I'm semi.
An actual adult, right?
Classy. You know. Yes, I have my multiverse wives list, but that's more of a appreciation of women that I wish that I would be fortunate enough to, date and be married to, and not treating them as, oh my God, let's whatever. So it's a different ball game than being outside on the street whistling or saying derogatory things under my breath in the hopes that
or mansplaining to a woman who's obviously who's very credentialed and very qualified. She said that was part of her professional experience.
So I would never do that, but I if I wanted to, I could name at least 5 instances that I've seen with my own 2 eyes of men doing this in the real world. So for somebody to say, Until the MCU brought this up, I never knew it was a thing. Are you joking?
How sheltered is your life? If that's
yeah,
the case.
I just found that ridiculous.
Yeah. By the way, one of the lines that Bruce said that I thought was hilarious when he called himself Smart Hulk, and she was like, that's kind of egotistical, and he's like, that's not my name, but she said, oh, it's an implied endorsement because you use it, and he's like, don't lawyer me. I like that line. I was like, nobody likes somebody who likes to argue every single point. That gets tedious.
Yeah.
So,
that was funny, yeah. Their banter is really good. I like their banter with each other. It's perfect.
It was lighthearted, but this is why I said, even though I don't like what's happened with the Hulk since the Avengers, well, at least since Age of Ultron, but this version of the Hulk fits well on this show.
I think, to me, it's all about where this kind of stuff is used. In this scenario, I don't mind Bruce Banner being lighthearted in this nature. In an Avengers film where he's got to kick some behind, I don't want him making, jokes every 5 minutes. So it's just...
Or not showing up for the final battle in Endgame.
Well, having performance anxiety,
Right. He did show up, but go ahead.
They don't make Viagra in green. It's only blue, so,
But
if he had blue Viagra, he would, or green Viagra, he would have been fine.
Yeah. He was there, but you saw the big three Avengers get that moment against Thanos, and he was nowhere.
Somebody's gonna make fan art of that. Now that I said that, I'm disturbed by the fan art that may arise. I'm still, every once in a while, I still call to mind when Tony Stark calls out Natasha and
yes.
Bruce, and he's like, "Stop playing hide the zucchini."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Every time I go eat zucchini, it's probably why I don't eat zucchini anymore. It's like, no.
That's
So anyway,
you know what? I do want to call out another thing too. I think the training exercise where he kind of locked her in that room with the buzzsaws, I believe that was inspired by the intro of the 1982 cartoon.
Okay.
Because Bruce is there. There's a scene in the 82 cartoon where he's trapped in a room like that. It's spikes instead of buzzsaws, but it was very similar. So
and I like when he's so excited by her like her hulking out and raging and breaking the door. Yeah. He's like, yes. Yeah. And she wants to tear him apart because she's pissed off at him.
By the way, I thought that the CGI was fine in this.
Oh yeah.
That was a subject of controversy. I thought whatever changes they needed to make, they did.
I agree with it. It looks fine to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically Jen attempts to leave. She's stopped by Bruce, and the two have a fight until, number one, they kind of crush his bar. Well, they don't kind of. They crush his bar. And he eventually accepts the fact that she's going to have to go back to the world, try to resume her career as a lawyer, and see what happens.
Right.
Make mistakes, whatever, but he can't live her life for her is what he's saying.
Yeah. And she does go back, and we see what happens when she's in a courtroom.
Mm-hmm. She is interrupted by Titania. She crashes through a wall, and Jen has no choice but to transform right then and there to the She-Hulk. By the way, another aside, I just want to say she is not a mutant. That's not what she was saying. That's not what Bruce was saying when he said that that their biology, that they can synthesize gamma radiation. That's not what he was saying. Some people took that as, oh, she's part of the X-Men. No, that's not what she was saying. But so she lays the smack down on Titania and returns to her Jen form to make her closing argument.
Yeah.
By the way, I thought great use of the music there, that, the Who's That Girl song.
Yeah, the musical choices were good. Yeah. And, the battle was short between them. But, again, there were a couple action set pieces that looked really good in this pilot episode. Yeah.
Right.
Um, um, so, anything else you want to say about the first episode?
Well, there was a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Where Jen and she's back on the island with Bruce, and she is lamenting the fact that she thought Captain America never had a physical love life, and Bruce, of course, is able to tell her, no, that's not the case, and she seemed to be very happy about that. Again, that's another part of her in the comics is that I won't say she's inappropriate, but she's kind of forthright when it comes to the subject of sexuality. She likes to be kind of aggressive and forthright with men sometimes. One of my favorite panels is her telling Wolverine that he had a nice tight butt. So, she kind of turns that dynamic around in kind of a funny way. And that, again, it wasn't inappropriate. They cut the bad word off before she completed it.
I mean, it's implied. It's implied, and that's all you need.
Right, exactly.
As opposed to in a post-credit scene, hearing the Joker tell Batman he wants to give him the reach around, which I thought
I definitely could have done without that.
So this came off a lot better.
Yes.
And more appropriate.
Yes.
Because
that would not have been appropriate for Disney Plus.
That's not why you go to a Justice League movie, folks, to hear Joker say that. Anyway, but global phenomenons are what they are, and such and this and that. Anyway,
maybe some people do, and I'm not going to judge you. I'm just saying I don't want to see R-rated stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that would have happened. He said something about the 40s, right? Is when
1943. There actually is a scene where
a woman. We saw that, didn't we?
Yeah, she comes up to him on the USO tour and says hello, and he's kind of taken with her, and it's a very little innocuous scene, or so we think.
Yeah.
But that is the woman that evidently,
Yeah.
Steve Rogers was familiar with.
Suspecting the Shield. That's what she was doing. And we'll leave it at that.
There we go. Yeah. You said it, not me.
Well, listen, I said it in the most polite way I could.
There you go. So, as far as criticisms, the one thing I want to say is, once again, and this has nothing to do with Jen herself, but the fact that at the start of this, once again, Bruce's arm is still not healed. No, I say, no. The Hulk should have been healed a long time ago. He's the Hulk, okay? He has a healing factor that's unparalleled. So, that's all I had to say. Anyway.
So, just based on the amount of no's that you uttered there, I think you don't like that part of the show.
I no, and that has more to do with the movies and the fact that he's still like that.
Yeah, it's a leftover remnant of the movie mistakes. Yeah.
Right. For those of you who don't know, go watch The Professor and his healing powers in the comics.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
His healing powers are equal to, if not greater than, the Savage Hulk.
Yes.
So.
I agree. I don't have many complaints at all. I get that one. It's a little bit. It's like still, So let's rate this episode, and then we'll do.
Are we doing letter grades or numbers?
Letter grade, yes.
I'm going to give it an A-.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Yeah. Solid start. Good banter between the cousins. Strong CGI work.
Mm-hmm.
Some cool action set pieces, even though they were each one was individually shorter than I would have liked, but it's understandable when you have a 35-minute or 38-minute pilot and have to do all the things that it was required to do.
And by the way, Tatiana looks very comfortable talking directly into the camera.
Yeah.
It's a very natural thing for her, so I'm impressed.
And I didn't know how that was going to work.
Yeah.
In this context, I know it worked in Deadpool, but in this context, where it's like part of the established MCU, it's like, how's that gonna? And it worked well. And I thought the humor was just the right amount. Like, it wasn't excessive. Yeah. It wasn't, overdone. I thought it was.
But she has to switch gears more than Deadpool, because Deadpool, kind of a goofball. He can talk into the camera and go back to being a goofball. She does that in kind of a lighthearted way. She's got to go back to being a lawyer.
Yeah, she's got to be more serious.
So she was able to switch gears.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So A- from both of us, and solid start. So let's get into some episode 2.
Episode 2, Superhuman Law. So we see that quickly her fame has risen, and she has been dubbed She-Hulk. She gets dubbed She-Hulk on TV. Initially, the guy said Chick Hulk.
Yeah.
That's not.
I'm sure that guy's got a lot of dates lined up. I'll tell you.
Exactly. Okay, so we also see that as she is in a bar having some drinks, we see that the case was declared a mistrial because she hulked out to save the jurors. So she did the right thing, but it cost her, which is a very common theme in superhero media. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, there's always a cost of, stepping out and trying to do the right thing.
Right, yeah.
Yes. So she is fired by the district attorney's office. And then we see a montage of her trying to find work. And everywhere she goes, they're like, yeah, you're qualified, but we can't hire you because of who you are now.
Yeah.
So she is finally offered a position, strangely enough, by the opposing counsel from the trial. And that is Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway, GLK and H.
That's a lot of. Thank God they initial that because.
That's a lot of letters.
Imagine saying, "Hey, I work at," and then spewing out that.
Right. That's why they say GLK and H instead of Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway. So she impulsively accepts without really thinking it through.
Right. Before you could explain the full offer, she's.
And one of the reasons is she said, I didn't rack up six figures in student debt, to become a lawyer, so I could be a superhero and not, maybe have any, income. So I wondered though, did the president of the MCU forgive her student debts? I don't know who the president of the United States is in the MCU, but.
Who is the president of the MCU?
I don't know. I do know at one time Barack Obama was in the comics, but I mean, I don't think we've ever really had an answer as far as the president in the MCU. Yeah. I don't know. So yeah. So anyway, we see her show up for her first day, and this is again with GLK and H, and she is told that she's going to be the head of the Superhuman Law Division. And that one of her expectations is that she will be the She-Hulk the entire time she's there. And she's a little less than thrilled about that.
Right. But it's just funny how she was fired by so many places because she's She-Hulk. Mm-hmm. And now the one place that wants her because she's She-Hulk. So it's...
Yes. But if you think, that's the biggest thing that's going to be a problem for her. What happens next is far more problematic, in that she is assigned to represent Emil Blonsky, a.k.a. the Abomination.
Yeah, which is a conflict of interest because the Abomination tried to kill her husband.
Yeah.
Cousin.
Let's hope he's not.
That's a weird ass show if that's where we're going.
Actually, in Old Man Logan, they were, they had kids together.
Yeah, that's a little disturbing.
No, that's more than a little disturbing.
No, but anyway, the Abomination tried to kill her cousin.
Yes.
When he looked like Ed Norton.
Right, exactly. So maybe Mark Ruffalo's another incarnation of the Hulk. And Edward Norton transforms into.
Right. That would keep your secret identity real good if you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So
you look nothing alike.
Jen talks to Bruce.
Clark Kent's like, where can I get some of that action?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine the next Superman movie? Brandon Routh plays Clark Kent and Henry Cavill plays Superman. That'll dispel the notion, real.
Yeah, that would throw people off the scent. So
yeah.
So she calls Bruce up, tells him the situation, and he's like, look, kind of water under the bridge. He was like, I understand what's going on here. I don't think that, that the Abomination is being, completely forthright here. But, Bruce is like, okay, go ahead and take the job. But not long after that, we see that Blonsky has escaped from prison and is participating in an underground fight club as Abomination.
Right. And we know how he did that because we've seen.
We saw that in Shang-Chi, wasn't it?
And Wong was partially involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because Banner, Ruffalo makes that line. He's like, "Oh, I was a different person back then." Literally,
Yeah.
It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, this episode is very. I mean, there's next to no physical action.
I noticed that too. Other than that last scene with seeing the Abomination on that screen, there was no fighting. There was no action.
Which is a shot from another movie, so you can just insert it where you need it.
And that speaks to the strength of this character. That watching her character develop is interesting enough to carry this episode and to carry this series through an entire episode.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's why I've been so excited about this series.
I'm really, interested in the character of Jen Walters, and that's largely because of the way Tatiana Maslany plays it. She's just so likable and charming that you get drawn into. I mean, that's part of being Canadian, but that's why you get drawn in. So. Yeah, and we saw her as She-Hulk, but I wasn't sitting there. Okay, where's the action scene? Okay, where's the action scene?
Yeah.
I never once did that cross my mind. I was just totally engrossed in the drama that was unfolding for her. So, yeah, no. Anything else you want to mention?
I'm going to throw this out there, and I don't feel this way, but I have seen this, and I think there's some validity to it. Some people have said that through 2 episodes, this show so far is a little too light on the cameos because we already knew Bruce was there.
Oh, and know they're coming in the back half, though.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, I didn't finish this episode and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being slighted because we haven't seen.
There's 9 episodes, folks. Let's relax.
Right. I thought this one was an A. I thought it was an improvement on the first one. And I'm excited about this series.
Don't you want to talk about the post-credit scene first?
Oh, right. Okay, so
because you said you were going to talk. Yeah.
We did talk about that. Okay, so we see that Bruce is actually in the Sicarian ship and heads back to presumably Sakaar. Now, I would love for us to finally get a proper Planet Hulk movie. Meaning that he goes back to Sakaar to fight the Red King and none of this stuff with the Grandmaster and all that stuff. And he goes back and actually turns into like the Green Scar, some version of that Hulk, and becomes, more aggressive again as opposed to, this kind of relaxed Banner Hulk. So
that could be where we're going, because why would you?
I would hope so.
Why would you include that stuff if that's not your intention?
Yes. I mean.
And apparently recently, Donnie, Marvel Studios did get apparently does have the rights now. The rights reverted back so that they could make a solo Hulk movie.
And I would love, and this might be wishing for too much, a World War Hulk movie.
Do you think it could be a series?
I would love that too. But I mean,
there's rumors that that's going to be announced. That's one of the announcements coming at D23 is that the World War Hulk, and with them showing the ship and him saying he's got to go handle something.
Yeah,
it leads more credence to that.
Yeah.
So D23,
that story was so amazing, though.
Oh, it was. Yeah, we got to review that at some point.
It finally answered the question: what if Hulk was just flat out homicidal?
Donnie, you got to pick some. You know what you got to do? You got to pick some good Hulk stories, and we'll do it. Yeah. Sure. We'll review them. Yeah.
I mean, what he did to the X-Men.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
Yeah. Definitely. But so that seems like a direction that they could be possibly going with with Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, and it would be a welcome direction because Mark Ruffalo is a talented individual, and I think in his first couple appearances as the Hulk, I thought he's really done well with the role. Namely the Avengers and Age of Ultron, but I think Thor Ragnarok really was the de-evolution of devaluation as well of the Hulk. So to build that up again, it would be nice to see. But we'll have to wait and see if those things get announced at D23 or at some point later on. But in terms of this episode, I did enjoy it. Again, I'm going to give it an A as well. I think, considering there was no action, and I enjoyed it slightly more than the first one, that speaks to the writing and the characterizations and the character development on this show. So, yeah.
I also like the scene of her carrying all the water bottles.
Yeah, that was cute.
For her dad. Yeah.
Her dad's good. Like he's taking full advantage of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cousin Larry from Perfect Strangers.
So yeah, overall, what a great start. And look, I'm loving what I'm seeing. The main thing is, I'm loving what I'm seeing from Jen Walters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really connected to that character. So that's first and foremost my enjoyment. In your response to the cameos, they are coming, which means sooner rather than later, I'm going to see my boy, Daredevil, and I'm excited for that. But
this has, for me, I just want to say this has a possibility to be my favorite Disney Plus series as far as the MCU goes. It's off to a running start.
Yeah, it depends how it finishes. I mean, to me, I think Miss Marvel really surprised me and kind of. If I had to put it, I'm not going to rank them all just now because I haven't thought that far down, But I was literally so impressed by Miss Marvel. I had a lot of fun with that.
Likewise.
So for me, that's probably tops of my list right now. In terms of
that's number 2 for me, behind only WandaVision. I still really like the concept of WandaVision. But
see, WandaVision's lower on my list, not because I didn't like it, but it was a little jarring with the whole sitcom stuff, and it's like
right.
Like I like those sitcoms in the context of when those sitcoms happen. Like if I'm watching an older one, like I can watch episodes of I Love Lucy and enjoy them and say, "Oh, cool, that was fun to read it."
Yeah.
But if you put I Love Lucy on like in modern days and told the exact same story, it's like.
I liked it because it was weird. I like weird things.
Yeah. Whereas I like the more.
That's why you and I are friends. So.
Yeah. Well, you know what, sir, you're getting a demotion. I'm taking away some of that Monopoly money. No, but in all seriousness,
we're both weird. That's why we're here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why we spend an hour every week talking about this stuff. But
it is what it is.
Yeah. No, but for me, WandaVision really kicked into gear in the second half when it started being more of an MCU show and less of a callback to the sitcoms of the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
Right. So, but yeah, right now Miss Marvel is number 1 for me, which is makes me even more kind of bummed out about the Batgirl situation because the producers of that show were the directors of Batgirl. And so that's a little bit of a bummer, but it is what it is. And there's nothing I can do about that. So She-Hulk is off to a great start. Looking forward.
You're not going to hashtag about it 10,000 times?
I mean, I could, but what's the point? I mean, does David Zaslav care that I'm bummed out about Batgirl? No. He'll just be like, here's Batman 2, go watch it. And I'll go watch it, and I'll probably, for at least 2 hours, forget about what happened with Batgirl. That's the nature of the movie business. Like we were all excited for, Multiverse of Madness, right? And then the next Marvel thing came on, and we shifted our focus there. So even if things happen that you don't particularly like, the next thing is always right around the corner with these properties. So it's like, why spend all that time being upset and yelling into the void when, in a couple months' time, the next thing is going to be around. And if there's something you don't like happening in the TV and film space, guess what? There are these beautiful things called comic books that feature these exact same characters that you can buy and go read. So,
yes.
They're really, it'd be a lot of wasted energy to sit around being mopey and pissed off because something I wanted is either not coming out or has been pushed a few months down the track and I have to wait. I mean, the first world problems that these things are is like, okay.
Yeah.
The only people who have the right to sit around and mope and be sad about the cancellation of Batgirl in a meaningful sense are the people that worked on that film.
Right. And I'm sure they are disappointed, but
those are the people that if anybody wants to yell and scream and hashtag, those are the people who should be doing it.
Yeah.
Not me, who's just gonna eat popcorn and watch it for 2 hours. Oh, okay. I didn't get paid by to work on that film. I didn't put 9 months of blood, sweat, and tears into making that thing. I just sat on the internet and read about it. So, and that goes the same with Marvel. Like, I would have loved to see a sequel to Ed Norton's Hulk movie. Didn't happen. All right.
Right, because things are complicated when it comes to these billion-dollar companies. That's just how it is.
It is what it is. It's the way of the IP, franchises. You just gotta roll. You gotta roll with the punches, and hope that when you sit in the theater or watch on your TV screen, that you enjoy the final product. That's all you can do as a consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, move on to the next thing. But luckily for us, we enjoyed the first 2 episodes of She-Hulk, and we'll be sticking around for the next 2. And that's when we'll reconvene here to talk more She-Hulk. But until then, if you want to talk to us about She-Hulk, you can do that on social media. So, Donnie, where do they find you?
You can find me on Twitter or TikTok as The Emerald Enthusiast. Let's talk collectibles. Let's talk comics. Let's talk She-Hulk. Let's talk Green Lantern.
So you can find me at Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. The podcast network has its own handle, which is at MMNPDC. We also have a Facebook group, which is somewhere in the link below with all the descriptions. I'm doing a swirly thing with my finger in case to indicate that it's below somewhere there. Click that. I'll add you. Yeah. The whole multiverse thing. I'll add you. We can continue the conversation. If you want to meet me in real life, well, that's only for the privileged who know me and who are one of my multiverse wives. And I'm currently on Earth 13. So if you want to find me, that's where I am. Good luck finding me. But until next time. And if you want to know who's my multiverse wife on Earth 13, go look at my Twitter.
There you go.
But until next time, remember that She-Hulk, attorney at law, is forever. From the first time she breaks the fourth wall and talks to the audience, to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.